Welcome to Architects for Change, the podcast that bridges the gap between architecture, the built environment and politics. I'm Jay Morton, your host. I'm an architect and political geek, and together we'll hear from the change makers and thought leaders who are shaping the future of our cities and spaces. Our conversations will tackle pressing questions that hold the key to our future. How can we achieve a net zero future? What does it truly take to design a better world? And most importantly, how can politics play a pivotal role in breaking down the barriers that hinder progress? So welcome to Architects for Change. So today I'm really pleased to be joined by Tim Heatley, who I would say is a developer, and maybe you can correct me, but I would say that you're a developer who likes to do things a little bit differently. You're like not your bog standard developer. It's, you know, I think what your company, Capital Centric, is about making places, making communities. It's not just about bricks and mortar. So it's really, really great to have you, because I definitely put you in the kind of change-making camp, which is what the podcast is basically all about.
Brilliant.
But rather than maybe me talking all about you, maybe would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I always like to hear like other people's version of
I'm always quite mindful not to do that too much.
Yeah, and suppose so. I like that sometimes. 'Cause it's good to see how other people perceive who it is about. You know.
I mean, I would say you. I think you're quite outspoken in a positive way, and you definitely give this sort of impression that you want to make change and do things for the better. Is that a good assumption?
Right. No, I think that's true. Yeah, and so I'd always tell people I'm a developer, but I'm always conscious of the public's initial perception of that is often what people will say in the pub, you know what, I'm thinking about doing development. Do you still get a B&Q good for kitchens, or would you recommend Magnet? I'm like, so you're kind of like, I don't do that sort of development really. Although in fairness, that's one of the ways that I started. But often the developer's got like a bit of a bad guy image to it often, really. But now I'm kind of a pains to point out that we're as much of an operator and an investor as we are a developer. So in a way, you know, the development is a way that we can end up being the operator investor in a community. It's just, you know, development is the route to it, but actually the end goal is to be, you know, the kind of like the community kind of orchestrator almost a little bit. That's really where we.
So you're sort of investing in places and almost being like the custodian of places.
Yeah.
In a way, is that a good assumption?
Yeah, that's it.
So maybe what drew you into development in the first place? What's your journey?
Failed lawyer, trained as a lawyer, but it had the legal system is all about following precedent. That's how it works. It's all about what's gone before, what were the rules and laws dictated around that, and then how do you follow that precedent. And I was always really don't want to follow the precedent, really want to do my own thing. I had a creative itch that I needed to scrap. And so I've always had that. When I was at uni, my uni mate studied art. That's what I should have studied. I'm more on the creative spectrum than I am on the academic spectrum, but I should have studied art. But my mates that did study art, I used to upcycle their artwork, frame it and sell it online, and when eBay was in its infancy. And then I did the same with beat up old cars as well. There was a car auction. I grew up in Salford, which is quite a deprived city really, especially at the time. And so they had an old car auction right near to where I lived, so I used to buy these cars. I'm not mechanically minded, but I could see a bit of beauty in something, or I could see a bit of
potential.
Appeal. Yeah, potential is what it is for sure. And then so I used to spend my evenings and weekends cleaning those up and sprucing them up, and then again selling them. So I've always been kind of like see unloved things, see potential, and upcycle and repurpose or improve, and then to sell them as a way of making money. And I'm unemployable, so always have been really. I was always sort of. I did a bit of work in retail. It never lasted long. Got fired twice. For just probably being too outspoken. And I worked a bit on construction as well. I've worked on construction sites a bit. And so I was interested in that. Like, where does all the money come from this? And how does all this happen? And what is it going to be? So I think that's how I ended up thinking. You know, I bought my first house after. Whilst I was, a trainee lawyer, if you like, I managed to get a mortgage because I was able to get a job. And that was great. And then I bought Derek House, and I really enjoyed the process of restoring it, improving it. I think I did it I absolutely had in mind to move into the house, but somebody knocked on the door and said, "I've seen you doing this. Could I buy it?" And it was a good chunk more than it cost me to put it there. And it was literally, there was a road along with another. It was actually a former corner shop that had closed down. And And I thought, well, I could just buy that and turn that into a family home. So I said, sure, buy this house off me. It was almost like a Coronation Street in Salford, Coronation Street style
You just
of houses.
basically just did them all.
So it just was, I was like, sell that one and buy that one, and it went from there. So in a way, I was very accidentally kind of fell into it, really.
Yeah, but then you got a bug for it.
Yeah, and then before you know it, we spend $3 million a week now on Regeneration.
Yeah.
So, you know, how it got there, I don't know, but it did.
I mean, it's quite incredible because, I mean, so how many years do you think from, what year did you actually start? When did you buy that first property?
now, and I'd have been about 22, 23.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite an achievement in like 20-something years.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Some people still think that we've grown like really quickly. We're a relatively young company, but in a way, we have been doing it a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
I think all credit to my business partner Adam, the other half of Capital Centric. You know, he's the smartest bloke I've ever met.
Yeah.
And he could see in me an entrepreneurial spirit, and I saw in him a bit of yin and yang to me as well in terms of complementary skills. And so him and I really, that's where things grew a lot. I'd had a little business called Centric.
Right.
And he had a business called Capital.
Oh, is that how the two came together?
Neither wanted the other to kind of like to be seen to be replacing the other. So it's like just have both names Capital and Centric. So it's absolutely. So one of the worst things in design, which is compromise. You know, but you know that's
but sometimes it works because I think how I actually interpreted the name from, because actually we had a chat yesterday, didn't we? It was almost like that developer, the sort of capitalism side, and then the Centric is almost sort of the wholesome, more social developer side, which kind of works quite well.
There is a bit of a story to it, and I don't know if you have time in this, but I'll say very briefly that the reason that the name Centric came about, and I think Capital was quite similar, was that there was nothing to it. We were one-man band, kind of like one-person property business, and if you like, and so we wanted a crap name. So at the time, I was based in a design studio of a creative company who's still going now in Salford, called Drumbeat, and I rented a desk off them, and I said to these guys, I said, I need a crap name because crap name property companies feel like they've been established for a long time. Whereas if it's a cool name, it's a bit here today, gone tomorrow. And this was around kind of like 07, 08, when I was kind of like formalising what I did. And so they said, they gave me some crap ideas, but then they said, Centric, we've been trying to palm this company Centric name off on all sorts of businesses. No one wants it. I was like, that is brilliantly shit. I'll take that name. And that's where Centric came from. And I think Adam was similar with Capital. He wanted to project an image of almost, so in a way our name is very different to what it is we actually do. You know, it's,
it does actually sound like a little bit more old school that it is.
It would treat people feel that we must have been established.
You've been going on for 50 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've been known to say that Capital and Centric is a social impact developer. So you're, as you say, you're not just developing; you're also sort of investing in places. Yeah. What does being a social impact developer mean to you?
I think we coined the phrase as well, and I seem to be surrounded by social impact developers now a bit as well, which I think is a bit odd. But I think it's partly a function of my upbringing and where I grew up, and Adam's similar. That we've always thought that you know, if we do a good job, well, there'll be opportunity to do more. Yeah. And if you're in a position whereby you can improve people's lives as well as grow a business, then that's a great thing, and it's good for business as well. So if you can demonstrate that that you're going to be able to help society in some way, but also you know, help to scale and grow a business, then people help you on that journey for sure. Absolutely. So we've always kind of been aligned with government strategy of the day. We've always kind of like wanted to, because you know, we're doing big projects and we had ambition to do bigger projects, and we knew that you can't do it in isolation. You've got to do it in partnership, and the public sector is so important to that. So we've always been, you know, focused on creating jobs. That's you know, a lot of our early growth was before we got involved in any residential development in terms of any scale. All of our growth really came from workspace and from job creation. And so we were building warehouses and we were building workspaces and offices during 08 and 09, 010 when there was, you know.
So you were kind of keeping things almost moving. Yeah. And particularly mainly in the northern cities, is it correct? It was
in the cities, and think that, you know, a lot in Liverpool, because we saw value in Liverpool in that the buildings were cheap. And so we were like fascinated by that kind of like, well, I couldn't build it for that kind of money. Yeah. So if I can buy it for less than I could build it for, then surely we've got a good basis. And that's how kind of we moved from we created these cool studios and offices and those great environments, and that was starting to understand human behaviour about what persuaded people to want to be based in our buildings versus anywhere else.
Yeah.
And we worked out that if it was really cool space, then the staff would want to be in our spaces as opposed to competitor developers' space. And so we started to work out, well, what is it that's going to persuade the talent, if you like, which all businesses are looking for. Talent is their single biggest competitor, if you like. There's a competitive advantage. So we were kind of focused on that demographic: younger people, talented, high-tech businesses, digital, creative sectors, and then that then went from people based in our workspace studios saying to us, "I love I'm in a cool studio, I'm in a cool office space of yours. Have you got any apartments or developments to live in? Because we can't see any that we like." And that's how we ended up kind of falling into residential development. And the opportunity to do residential development in terms of social impact is far greater as well. So creating jobs is really important, but also residential development is you can create all sorts of other ecosystems as a result.
Yeah.
So that was a game changer for us. And I think social impact for me is about making sure that the communities that you create are self-sufficient, that you can, and that you're able to ultimately leave them to it to thrive and continue to grow. So I think we're there to set a high watermark in terms of aesthetics and quality and operational space, but the high watermark essentially in that there's an entire community of its own that will then go and thrive.
And this is where I suppose for you the longer term stewardship comes in as well, because if you were sort of just building to sell, could you build to the same level of quality as you try and build if you're maintaining those assets?
Quite often the locations that we're in. So we moved out of cities. We're still in cities, but we went to towns because we could see that there's huge kind of like ability to have much more inclusive growth in towns as well, and that towns are getting overlooked often. Yeah. And those places interest us as well. Again, it's the misunderstood value that exists in these places. Yeah. And so we often talk in our space about how some of the most valuable communities on the planet are, the most valuable businesses on the planet are communities. So online communities mostly. Yeah. People that gather together on Facebook or Instagram or X or whatever it might be. That hugely valuable organisations, all based around a community of people, and we have the ability to create communities, but of a physical sort. Yeah. And people misunderstand the value of that. So that's kind of been a big philosophy of our businesses is those communities have value, and you can make a financial return based upon the success of that community. Yeah. And that's really important. So yes, we're a social impact developer, but we are here to make a profit, and we're here to scale and grow and prove that you can have great outcomes for everybody. And for us, one of the big measurements that we make is how successful is the communities that we've replanted back in a centre of a town or a city.
So what's maybe your most recent example of that maybe you're most proud of?
Well, one of the most recent project that we finished, because we have lots of projects on the go all the time, and we're completing projects every few months. We finished a scheme in Farnworth in Bolton. So Farnworth is a town in Bolton, in Greater Manchester, which I was reading in a magazine. I was reading the Manchester Evening News, the Manchester paper, and it said it's the cheapest place to live in all of Greater Manchester. Wow! So I went and had a look and thought, why is it so cheap? Because why is it struggling as a town? Clearly, the prices are so low. And I walked around it, and there were the biggest shop there was a mobility scooter shop. Yeah. Loads of vape shops. And so loads of takeaways, and so and it had a train station, and it was 20 minutes into the city centre of Manchester, but had just been overlooked, underinvested, hadn't had anything. It's got a massive food store in the centre, which is great. So it didn't have an out of town food store, so all the potential was there, but it hadn't attracted anybody new to go and live there, and its customer base had literally died off. It was the people had got old and died.
The high street dies, and
absolutely. So it just hadn't reinvented itself. So we acquired the shopping centre, and we couldn't save any of it. We often would repurpose buildings, but we couldn't keep it. It was beyond kind of any value, aesthetic or architectural. And so and we've demolished it all, and it's a full new build, but we've created a new town square in the centre and 100 homes, and they're all for rent. And the challenge there is massive viability issue, because the quality of architecture is just the same as it is in our city centre projects, but in the most kind of like, if you like, undervalued and overlooked part of Greater Manchester. So then how do you make that work? So to answer your question about like, well, in terms of how, the difference in terms of being an operator and investor, is that we spend way more money than you could ever possibly spend if you were going to sell them. We'd have made a loss if we just sold these.
Because like you say, you can buy something that already exists for way cheaper. Yeah. And I think this is the big challenge, isn't it? And I think sometimes when you talk to I find with like local councillors or anyone who's sort of trying to push for cheaper housing for new build, when you say how much it actually costs to build a flat, which is like 250 grand or more, wherever it is in the country. Yeah. But if you're in a place where you can buy a flat for way less than 250 grand, how does that stack up?
That's the challenge. So what we can do is we're happy to take a long-term view of value creation and spend more money on things that are going to save us in the long run. So energy efficiency is a really important part of that equation. So there we've got zero carbon homes, operationally zero carbon. Yeah. So that's new for us, so it's experimental. Yeah. So we're there to see, how they, does it translate into returns? Does that help? If people have got lower bills, then does that mean that they're prepared to pay more rent? Yeah. I don't know, but that would help if they would.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That would allow us to then roll out zero carbon across everything operationally. Yeah. So it's important for us to test these things, and we're happy to do it as well. There's no way anybody else would be building zero carbon homes in Farnworth. It just doesn't make financial sense. But you've got to experiment, and I'm fortunate that we're able to, that's a social experiment. 100 new homes in a town centre. It let in 10 weeks, and so it's interesting. Yeah. Wow. So, but then that in itself is interesting, because all of a sudden there's a new community that did not exist, and so it's a bit like a combination of Big Brother, Love Island, and all the other ones, Made in Chelsea, all mixed into one, if you like. And so we've had, there have been parties, there's relationships forming. This was only a few weeks ago that this place finished. Fights and arguments, give us a bit of Coronation Street mixed in there. and that is a successful community. In a way, one of the things that I love is that we always make sure that, even with our for sale products, so we only do for sale to owner-occupiers, or retain it all as one, as a good landlord, and we operate the spaces. We never sell fractionally or to... or to off-plan or to investors and so on. We always keep it all together, or to owner-occupiers. And so one of the things that we see as a sign of success is when the community complain to us en masse. It's great. Right. Okay. It's a pain in the backside. Yeah. But when they've got, it means they're clubbing together and they're talking to each other. Totally. Yeah. And if they think, oh, flipping heck, the lift is broken. Yeah. And you're like, okay, well, it's just a brand new lift, so we'll get it fixed. These things are new, so we're teething problems. Yeah. That's great. It's a great feeling to see them to see them working as a group. And I guess having that development there, does that then sort of bring up the sort of general value of that place, and then might entice other developers to do similar projects? Are you seeing that happen? Yeah, definitely. The other developers always make more money than we do, for sure, because we spend. Because you go first. We go first. So we make the place, and that's kind of our job. And I suppose we see that as it's important. I mean, one of the benefits is, I suppose, that there's a few years of effort that goes into the placemaking before we even lay a brick. It's all of that. We do events and activities and early activation of a place to make it attractive and appealing, so that when we launch our final project and it's available to occupy, that there's an immediate take up. So we kind of that's expensive and that's hard work, but it's very rewarding. And the other thing is, I would say, is that we've never ever done a project in a town or a city or a place. We've always gone on to do 2 and 3, and I think that's quite unusual. That I think that, and that's for me, that's a sign of you can. If you're a coffee shop, it's easy to get a customer to walk in off the street and get a coffee off you and off they go once. Easy, because you've got a fair chance. But to get repeat customer, I think, is very different. And to me, that's the true value of business, is how repeatable is that customer base. And I think developers don't think like that. And our customers are essentially often the public who rent our homes and our workspaces and our retail and leisure spaces, but also the public sector. Because they're collaborating with us to do these big, complex projects. And the fact that they'll go on, cities and towns will go on to do 2 and 3 schemes with us is a really good sign. Because you have, these things are not easy. You have difficult conversations with public sector partners. You have, challenges to overcome, and you have
Yeah.
some tense conversations with them.
Yeah.
But the fact that they'll go, you know what, we'll do that again, is a really good sign, I think.
It's a sign that sort of there's trust in you to actually sort of deliver the right project as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, so you talked about new build there, but you also do a lot of retrofit, which you have touched on.
Yeah.
Would you say that is quite a priority for you, or are you sort of balancing between the two? And what are the biggest challenges with retrofit, do you find?
Yeah, it's 80% of what we do is new build, but retrofit, is a key component to what we do, because, anchoring our developments with heritage is really important. We notice that when we've got a big formal warehouse, or whatever it might be, to let, versus a brand new apartment block, and we have them side by side next to each other, finished at the same time. We have those under construction at the moment, and there's always an appeal for the warehouse first. The warehouse always lets first. The beautiful old heritage building always goes first.
Yeah.
And so I get that. I see that. That's like, well, there's definitely an appeal in that product. And so we kind of anchor into a place with heritage, but not just heritage, because some of our buildings that we're restoring and converting, we're underway at the moment with a 60s, 70s office space.
Yeah.
But I like the Barbican vibe almost to it that it's got, and that's a
Yeah.
workspace project, just offices, entirely offices, and that's in Wigan.
Yeah.
Also a Greater Manchester thing, but we're now throughout the UK, so there's a whole spectrum of different existing properties. But one of the other reasons beyond just the fact that you're rooted in a place if you're repurposing existing buildings rather than just creating a whole new place into a place. One of the other benefits is that for us often is that we understand how to save time and money by repurposing that existing building.
I mean, different people say different things about retrofit in that respect. Some people say it's. I mean, I was talking to Tyler Goodwin a few podcasts ago, and he's very pro retrofit.
Right.
And but he's like, it is really, really hard. And I guess the challenge with the finance is the unknown as well.
Yeah. I think though, the benefit we've got, I suppose, is that I've been doing it since I was a kid.
What was the first thing Yeah.
So in a way, I'm like, well, that's default. That's
Yeah.
like where I go to first, and you get a good feel for what these things are going to cost and how long they're going to take, and you get to work out that is or isn't worth saving a bit better. I mean, where we sort of struggle is because it's often the default for others is often to demolish, and that there's a lack of skill and a lack of appetite and risk for the risk and for the effort and time involved in unpicking genuinely, is it worth keeping? So many of the buildings that we are underway with repurposing have been condemned.
Yeah.
They've got rack, or it's unusable.
Yeah.
And then you go, really, is it? And you go digging and digging and digging. You go, I think we might need to look at this in a bit more detail. So there's a shopping centre that we're repurposing at the moment for homes, and a multi-storey car park, and these are UK firsts. It's not been done before. But that's because we are prepared to kind of like go, perhaps it could be done, rather than dismiss it and let's get into the detail on it and check. So it can be more cost effective. It certainly can be quicker as well. Not always, but I think if you rehearsed it and you do it enough, then you get to work it out pretty quick, and you get better at it, like anything. And so I think that we've just got good at it, and therefore often for us it is more cost effective and more more time effective to repurpose.
I mean, it would be good if we could have the VAT situation changed.
That would help.
That would really, really help.
Totally.
And I suppose this is the thing. What's interesting, what you're saying is, it's that investment in thinking time, which I personally sometimes find in the construction industry. There's always this sort of race to programs. It's always like in the design. I mean, our programs are being shortened and shortened and shortened. And actually, if you want to get a good project, if you want to actually save money, maybe a little bit more thinking time. Can actually go into that. I can think a bit harder if it's a new build or a retrofit about how to save that client money, do something a little bit more inventive. But if the program's not there and the fee for the design team's not there, then it's sort of, or like you say, but you give yourself that space and time to actually think a little bit more. Would you say it's a fair assumption?
That's right. And then and we have many of our projects are a traditional form of contract as well.
Yeah.
So we'll just design all the detail right at the very start. It scares the daylights out of some.
Yeah.
I remember one contractor came back and said, these aren't a set of architect's plans. This is they've not designed a building, they've designed a Swiss watch. It's that intricate with all the detail and all the drawings. But I think for us, then we know exactly what we're going to get, and we really are interested in.
And that's important to have the control as well, isn't it? And I guess, and in understanding that existing building, rather than going down the design and build route where a contractor just puts massive. They just go, oh, this is going to require a bit of thinking time from them, and they put that sort of extra risk on the sort of tender price. Do you think you probably do actually save money by being a bit more careful.
By kind of almost do the thinking for them and get into the detail a bit more for them.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge to get the right kind of contractors that can deliver the quality and understand and calculate the risk.
What are you kind of looking for when you're acquiring existing buildings? Or is it more just you see something that's unloved and you don't even know what you want to do with it? Because I was seeing on your LinkedIn post, you're like, what do I do with this shopping centre? Yeah,
no, it's good to ask people to get their opinions. They come up with good ideas.
Yeah.
And especially local people as well. They've got the best ideas. I've always been a big fan of public consultation.
Yeah.
But doing it in a way that's...
We say the same, actually. Yeah.
If you do it in a way that's not like in a library with Fomex boards.
Yeah.
And you do it like, and ours are usually, we do them with music and dance and food and drink, and we
love that.
It's a bit of a party. You can have a look on some of our social channels, and you can see those events that you put on.
Yeah.
And the stuff people tell you, the stuff you learn is massive. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then they become brilliant sort of promoters of what it is you're trying to achieve, and they tell their friends and family and so on. But then they put us in touch with other businesses that are cool, that can do things with us, to collaborate with us, or to open in our spaces. And so when we turn up there, it's kind of like not having any preconceived ideas, even down to like, do we have to keep it or keep that building or not? And so just turning up and listening a lot is a big difference. I think I'm a big fan of that. Just having a listen and then tuning into especially to go more, as we spread across the UK.
Yeah.
Things are different than just the Northwest. People have a very different perspective on lives. And
different experiences and different stories, which I guess you start to tease out as well.
That's it. Yeah.
And I guess, we find that as well with, I've always said, like, local people are the best design tool that we have. So why not use it?
Yeah.
And there might be that understanding of what's loved and what's not loved. There's something that, as a developer or an architect, you come to a site and you think, oh, that bit's not important, and it might be the most important part.
Totally.
Like a little bit of green space that someone really loves, or might be a spot that somebody used to sit every day, or whatever it is. It can be. You can't, it's easy to overlook and understand that everyone's different. And
a bit of sort of naivety helps on our part.
Yeah.
So we'll turn up to a place and go, I think this could be amazing, and you often will see the local people looking at you going, you are mad. This place is condemned. It's like, why would you bother?
Yeah.
That helps that we can just kind of almost, we don't know too much, which is quite handy. You can know too much and scare yourself off. So a little bit of that's quite good, and so I like a bit of naivety on those things as well. And then so you go in gut feeling instinctively, but then you can go back and have the community consultation and just check, and then you have to go beyond the knee-jerk negativity of people as well. That the noisy minority who will often say, it's horrendous, it's terrible, we don't want this, go away. And then you have to go fishing a little bit for the silent majority who are like, I think it would be lovely, and I would really like to see this improved.
And I would like to see more homes here, or I would like to see more workspace here, because that would be really good for me. Which is that I've actually recently had a conversation with the Just Build Homes team, which I don't know if you're familiar with them, who've been sort of trying to get that silent majority, which I think is really important, because otherwise we're just constantly faced with negativity. But also then sometimes understanding why people are negative about something new, and sometimes you can even work with those people and tease under the surface.
Yeah, it's interesting when we might talk later about the TV shows that we've done and the social media presence that we have, and that's a part. You get a really interesting feedback from that live about what people's fears are, and I understand why so many people are reluctant to have homes and new builds in their area, because a lot of them are crap.
Yeah.
And so you kind of don't blame them almost, and we have to. It's really hard for us to explain that ours will be beautiful, and we have to say you need to go and have a look at our back catalogue, and then they'll either go away and be happy, or they'll come back and go, in fairness, that looks good. So I get it. I think I can see why it's difficult to get planning and why people object, because so much of what people get fed is poor quality.
Definitely a lack of trust, and like you say, I sometimes see developments that go up and you just think, how did that even, and how did that get past planning? And also that's now there, and I'm gonna have to look at that. From now until the end of time, which is it's why it's really, really important to deliver really good quality. Moving on to sort of some of the your sort of social impact work, you've actually been doing a lot of work around homelessness in Manchester. Would you like to maybe elaborate on?
So one of Manchester's biggest challenges is the fact that it's a successful city. It's grown so much. And always made a big point of saying, if that we want to be inclusive in our growth, and we want to help the people that are most vulnerable in society, and we will help people who are at risk of homelessness or are homeless. But in a sense, that has almost acted as a signpost to Manchester as a city. So it continues to have people who are homeless or at risk of homeless, turning up in the city and saying, "Can you help me?" From other cities, and so it's an ongoing issue. And I was very conscious of the fact that here we are building, thousands of homes in the city centre that are very expensive to live in. They just are. It's Manchester. It's expensive to live in the centre of the city. And so it's like, well, what else can we do to ensure that we are helping people who have no prospect or opportunity? Because we know that you judge any city by how it treats its most vulnerable people. That's how And so it's a really good.
I think we could upgrade that to society, to the country as well.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
We could be doing better.
Yeah, that's and we want. I want, it's good for business, for Manchester to continue to be an appealing city for people to live in as well. And if that's one of the matrix people are judging it on is, well, how bad is rough sleeping, for example, then we need to improve that. So I always like the idea that it's like, if you can do it from a pragmatic perspective, which is it's good for business and it's good for the people, then that's a really good thing. So I was interested in the topic and interested in homelessness to see if I could help. And we have buildings that that are awaiting restoration conversion. So that's why I started to chat to Andy Burnham's office, who's the Mayor of Greater Manchester, about, well, could we temporarily repurpose some of these buildings to provide some temporary accommodation for people who are sleeping rough? And then that led to other things, and then I was introduced to a guy who wanted to convert a bus into a homeless shelter. And he approached us because he said, "You convert buildings, how about that? How about we convert this?" And then,
you've got the skill and the knowledge.
A bit,
to support with that.
So we did that. So we created I think the UK's first mobile homeless shelter, and then that's gone on to be a physical community now. So we're currently under construction with 40 homes for people who are at risk of rough sleeping and homelessness in the centre of Manchester, in quite a very attractive place called Castlefield under railway arches, and that's all has been privately funded so far, raised in excess of £4 million to do that. And so there's that, which is that's called Embassy. There's a charity now that I was involved in co-founding. The other thing is, from the conversations with Andy Burnham and his team, we said, well, we need a charity, a Greater Manchester Mayor's charity, to help raise funds to reduce rough sleep in the city as well. And then at the same time, there's an initiative, one of the trustees of that charity, Reverend Ian Rutherford, top bloke, came up with an idea around if you can provide a bed for people on a one-night basis, that's great, but Beast of the East was around, if you know that. And it meant that people who were sleeping rough had to come off the streets for like days on end. And the difference you could make to somebody's life from days on end, from working with them and helping them.
They can start to rebuild themselves a little bit,
Yes, rather than go back out onto the streets the following night when it's a bit warmer, they had to stay around. So you could change their direction and trajectory, and that's when we decided to have this bed every night idea that Andy championed, which was, so there is a bed for every single rough sleeper in Greater Manchester, and that's our flagship initiative of the Greater Manchester Mayor's charity, but not just the bed, wraparound healthcare support, hot meal, shower, and so on. And so that's exciting. So we have fundraising activities for that. We have a bus pull, we have DJ battles, we have 24-hour marathon run, we have all interesting gigs and activities and events that we do. Cool stuff, cool fundraising events and parties to raise funds for that.
So again, I suppose forms interest and community around everything you're doing as well. And
it helps as well because I'm used to dealing with big numbers. So that charity alone has raised several £1 million since we created it, and that's great. It feels like it's fun, and I learn loads, and there's definitely you need a different skill set. I had to learn how to chair a board of a charity and governance and everything around that. So it's really rewarding.
And I suppose this goes back into that being the kind of long-term custodian of places again. You're sort of like doing that for the places that you work in, for Manchester, for the homeless community, and actually sort of rebuilding from the ground up that community and that place and improving it, which then improves values in the long term as well. I guess, like you say, it's
I think
it's good for business.
It taught us definitely taught us about how you need more than just physical infrastructure, you support. So you can't just build a thing and think it's done. You need to the people in whatever situation need supporting. So a new community needs supporting. So we can't build a new development and then rent it completely and then walk away. So we need to stick around and do the Christmas carols, and we need to sort out arrange an Easter egg hunt, and we need to do a tea and cake reception for the new residents to get them to meet each other. You can't. You've got to stick around to make that community gel. And then eventually they'll tell you to piss off when they, when they've got their thing going. So it fills me. When I go into one of our completed projects that we're operating, and it says, went into one of our projects recently, and on the lift it had the Community Residents Association. What was it? It was like I think it was like a laser quest or a paintballing activity that they arranged themselves. You
felt proud.
Proud
feeling. Dad.
Yeah, really good feeling. Like, brilliant. I mean, I'm not sure I'd be up for it, but each their own. But I'm like, great, what a great thing, and it was, and so that's a great feeling. That's what you want. And they literally will say, I don't want you organising the event. Capital Centric, we'll do it ourselves. Thanks very much. And I'm like, brilliant.
But you're definitely bringing, I suppose with the way you are in the company, is actually you're bringing sort of energy to those communities to sort of like show that can happen.
Yeah, no, that's
as well,
it.
Which then I suppose is sort of spirals and kind of keep things moving and keep things going.
Yeah.
You've actually sort of mentioned you're working with Andy Burnham, but you actually do sort of work quite a lot with a lot of political leaders.
Yeah.
I mean, how important is that? One thing, do you feel like they're listening to what you're doing, and how important are those relationships?
The great thing about what I must got to say about the mayoral leaders is that they're an impressive bunch, and there's not lots of them yet, and there's some new ones I've got to meet. But the ones that I've worked with so far are really good, and they can make big stuff happen. And there's a broad spectrum of leaders of cities and towns, in terms of quality, in terms of making change and improving things. So you can get good and bad ones. But the great thing about the Metro Mayors so far is that they do seem to be a really good bunch, and they can do big stuff. And so working with the politicians is really important to understand, they're there to represent their place and give you a distilled version of what it is that the people of that place want to see happen. So we always start there first. One of the first questions I go and see and ask them about is, what do you want to see in terms of in terms of development? Whereabouts do you want it? And which is your priority? Like, which do you want to do first? Because they normally say, I want everything, everywhere. I want it tomorrow. And then I try and say, okay, well, can we just sort of get really specific about where that is? Because I know that if we're doing exactly what it is that they want to see, it could be we want a 5-star hotel. It could be that we want affordable housing. It could be that they want a zero carbon workspace. It could, all these things. And I try and really understand what it is exactly they want to see, in what order, and what priority, and whereabouts physically, and then we just go and focus our efforts exactly there.
So for you would say the actual role of Metro Mayors is actually really, really important, I suppose, because they actually can be a little bit more independent than whatever their main party is as well, particularly if the party's in government, per se. That's really important. I mean, from what I've seen so far, they do seem to be getting support from the central government, no matter what their political allegiance. We've got some new candidates now, so we'll see if that continues. Well, some of them might be quite interesting.
Again,
we don't know. I don't know what your politics are. There's definitely one that I'm a bit nervous about. Or two.
As a developer,
I don't know how many are there.
As a developer, I try not to have too much of a to have a
that's probably a good thing.
Politics thing. And I do work with all different parties across the board. And actually, I find, for the most part, that a good leader. It's very difficult to differentiate what political party that they're represented, because they're a good leader for their place, and it's about their people and the place first. So I get, I really get on with those people that really do care, and it's not about them. It's about what they can achieve for the people that have elected them to be there, and they can make great stuff happen, and they've got a good grip of their executive as well, where they can say, look, I do want this to happen, and we need to drive some change.
So do you feel they're probably easier to work with and probably more accessible than like government and like MPs? Well,
yeah, funnily enough, I don't really have much interaction with MPs at all. It's all the leader of the councils and the Metro Mayors. Other than, I'm fortunate enough that I have been able to have conversations with some of the people in the cabinet, which is really good, because they've got great influence, and that's more of a function of the scale of our projects now. They've got bigger, so and the ambition's bigger. So you can't do that in isolation. You got to make sure that that you're communicating back to the government about what we think is important as the private sector as well. And it's great. In fairness, the previous government would listen and would turn up and have a look around and take that on board, and the current government are doing that as well. And so I think, that's really encouraging. I think they're going to have to go and do more as well in terms of the kind of projects that we do. I think the government are going to have to, probably with the way that the political landscape's changing, they're going to have to they'll have to continue to demonstrate improvement and growth and more change in a physical perspective as well. So I think that's probably we need to work together. You know, the development industry and government are going to work increasingly closer, I think, in order to deliver the government's objectives.
And also that kind of improving places and placemaking and providing opportunities is quite a clear physical way for people to see that change is happening and things are happening, which I think, this is why I think actually the built environment could be the source of, you know, a lot of benefits. But also, if you are wanting to win votes, then actually, if people can physically see things are happening, and if what you're working in towns that you've used the term forgotten a few times when you're talking about some of the towns that you're working in, but by sort of seeing that change, is that then I suppose allows local communities to feel like somebody cares and someone's investing in them.
Completely.
So you could be the key.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think certainly our sector is. I mean, do you remember the riots that existed that happened not long ago when, you know, various hotels were being attacked and so on because they were housing people that were economic migrants, and the towns that were some of the worst towns affected. It was like a list of the Capital Centric projects. It's like these are the places that we are starting to talk to about where we're going to invest and develop, and so there's definitely a correlation there between the two, in terms of like, and you're right that, and it needs to go beyond just like you've got some new pavements, you know, and a revamped bus stop. It's got to be much more than that. You've got to give people hope that their town and their place will be better in the future. And one of the ways you do that is demonstrate to them you can attract a new customer, a new audience, a new residents who are potentially have high earning ability, that can bring wealth to an area, that they can bring aspiration to an area, that will drive better standards in a place as well. So hopefully our projects do that. We want to be able to have local people live in them and work in them, but we're also absolutely always trying to retain graduates in that town and place and city, and attract new people to that place as well, if we're going to shift the dial of a place, and so that's a big part of it.
And are you able to sort of do that in a way that convinces the existing communities that it's not gentrification, it's regeneration, and you're sort of working together rather than, because sometimes that can be the criticism with any new development is, I mean, I get it a lot in public consultations, is the term gentrification, when actually what we're doing is regeneration, and we want to try and bring everyone along with us. Yeah,
and I don't worry about it so much in that, I mean, certainly we're always first in, we're the pioneer, and we are that early. That gentrification is a distant sort of like dream, and I kind of know that we're at risk of doing a great job if people start saying, it's not feeling a little bit gentrified around here, and I'm like, well, you only have to walk one street that way, and it's, you know, it's a lot different. So I feel that for us, in a way, I quite like the fact that some people will fear it, because that's your negative kind of bunch of people that you always get anyway, using that as yet another thing a spanner to throw in the works. And so I feel as though, and if ultimately gentrification is where it's ended up, you know, once we've finished and we've left, and a couple of years later it ends up becoming a gentrification thing, then I think we've done the job well. It's just that have you managed the growth after we finished, and have you managed the inclusive side of it thereafter? Because we can set it on the trajectory, but it's then for others to kind of like go, well, when does the limit kick in? And I've got to say that even though we can be on a second and third project in a place, gentrification isn't really ever a risk within the timeframes that we're working in.
And maybe going almost back to the sort of other benefits of the work that you do is your project Regeneration Brainery, which is also about investing in people and young people. So what effect has that sort of had on the people that have come for it?
Yeah, I mean so the reason behind Regeneration Brainery, a non-profit that we started back in 2017, was because when we were growing and we were trying, you know, getting people to come and work with us, I noticed a very similar demographic on the CVs and you know, the people that come in for an interview, and I was very aware that the people that we were talking to about joining our business weren't necessarily representative of the people and the places that we were developing in. And I'm like, well, how do we really know what the challenges of that place are that we're proposing to, you know, regenerate if we've never walked in their shoes? So, you know, can we really come up with the right solutions to a place if we don't really know what the issues are of those places as well? So, we started to, we tried to look for, well, there must be a more diverse bunch of people that we could recruit, but there wasn't. And so we could shrug our shoulders and go, hey, not our problem, not our fault. You know, we tried, we looked and tried, and it wasn't to be, or we could do something about it. So we said, well, let's start this thing, which is, it's inspirational, it's not educational, it's there to make connections, it's there to create apprenticeships, it's there to create work opportunities, and it's not construction, it's everything else in the built environment really, which is a bit of a blind spot in education. So people say they're interested in buildings to their teachers, and they go, oh, well, you need to go become a bricklayer.
Yeah, that is it is a real, particularly in state schools, it is a real problem, that sort of understanding of what careers actually exist, particularly in the built environment, and what can't be better than like being able to shape the sort of towns and cities that you live in whatever way that might be, whether it be planning, project management. I mean, there's so many roles out there that there's something almost for everybody. And we have that when we go into schools, and I actually try not to, if I do go into a school, I don't just try and tell them about being an architect, I tell them about that, but I also tell them about all the other things that they could get involved with.
The investment management, the marketing side of it, the interior design, the landscape. It's just the engineering. It's just huge. It's one of the, it's by far and away, absolutely one of the biggest sectors, and that touches so many people's lives. And we're not really, you know, we haven't really been doing a great job of diversifying the people to make us more resilient and you know, and better as a sector and more successful. So and that's gone from strength to strength. Again, the thing about, you know, just inviting other people in, you know, it being a collaborative approach and being very much about the whole sector kind of approach. And we've had, and there are great partners, and that's gone on strength to strength. And it's great to see it blossom. I got out my own way as well pretty early on, so I think it was a good idea to start it. But you know, I don't have to be involved in it because, you know, there are much more talented people than me that have scaled it, which is fantastic. And so that is it's really rewarding to see. But we get the benefit of these talented young people that we get the chance to meet, who tell us what the future's bringing. So we can improve at what we're doing, and our projects are more successful as a result of that. So it's kind of like everyone. And
you're getting a more diverse workforce, which everyone says is good for business anyway, because like you say, you're getting different ideas, different experiences. And just sort of different ways of looking at things and different ways of doing things, particularly when you're working in different locations as well. So you're sort of representing both sides.
That's it.
So maybe moving back onto maybe some of the challenges, like what do you think is the sort of biggest challenge in the sector that you're facing at the moment?
Yeah, there's lots and many, and it's ongoing. And so, like you know, occasionally I'll get a message on through social, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn, from people saying, "I think I'm starting a company. I admire what Capital Centric do. What's your advice?" And you're like, "Oh, don't do it." It's like so hard to. I feel like really lucky, and I've been really lucky to get to where we've got to. You know, there's been so many lucky breaks that have got us where we got to. You couldn't plan it, and you couldn't redo it. I don't think. You've got to be. You need a bit of good luck, hard work for sure. And so, because at the minute you've got, I think one of the big skills is a big problem. I mean, skills in building contractors to do what we do. You know, there's very little. You know, the construction world is struggling for the labour a bit of it, but also the understanding risk and contract management of those things. That's definitely a challenge. The numbers have all gone the wrong way. Interest rates gone too high. Construction costs have gone too high. You know, values have plateaued of buildings, and so that's a challenge. I don't really see planning as a big issue. We don't really have a planning issue.
I mean, everyone keeps talking about planning because it's the easy one to target, isn't it? And you think, are they not the good? They're also the arbiters of quality. I think there is definitely some things that can. We definitely need things to move through quicker, and we do need more planners. But I don't know. If you've got a good project and well-informed people on the other side of the table, it should get through.
So I think we've benefited from that. It helps to have a good track record. It helps to have a good back catalogue to point to say, we're beautiful.
Trust us. So
that helps us, I think. So I can see why others might struggle a bit. But generally speaking, that's not a challenge for us. Planning isn't a problem. We haven't really had a problem with planning ever. I think, so financials and funding, because we are pioneering, we're taking a chance on places. There's no evidence for it as we're proposing to create. There's no it's not been done before often in the places that we're creating these whole new communities. So that's a challenge, and
because is there sort of a challenge to prove the return? I'm just thinking about how I'm just thinking about how government invests in places. So it's like, well, we'll invest in London because we know because it's already growth, so the return is this. Whereas if you invest in somewhere that actually needs the investment, the return is less. So you're never actually growing those other places when you're sort of talking about government. So maybe do you have that challenge as well to sort of prove if you invest in here, the values will come back?
Yes, it is a tough one because because of the way that the numbers. Is it called the Red Book? The way that or is it Green Book?
Yeah, something like
confused between the two. They need
which is why everyone just keeps investing in the southeast when actually why not? We do need to sort of distribute opportunities and access to property and all of these things.
Because it'll always become. Otherwise, it'll always become an economic drag on the rest of the UK, or on the south. It'll always, the north could always act as a drag, whereas it could be reversed, and you could rebalance it all entirely, and
we
so,
can all move to the north.
Yeah, exactly. And so that happens a lot, by the way. A lot of people who move into our projects are going, oh God, if I to live here in London would cost me a fortune. I couldn't possibly afford to live in a quality of place like this, but I can do here, and we get that a lot. And that's exciting because people have got and these aren't just people who are they're people from all over the world who are digital nomads, and they can be based wherever, and that's exciting. You've got to make sure that our UK cities have to be appealing and attractive to those people.
I actually had a friend who did that. He got a job. He retrained as a coder, got a job at, working for this organisation, and they were like, well, you can work anywhere, you don't have to be in the office, really. So he thought, well, I could live in Zone 5, because he wanted to live by himself, rather than live in a shared house. I could live in Zone 5 in London, or I could live right in the middle of Manchester, in a build-to-rent scheme, which is what he did for a few years, and he absolutely loved it.
So much less expensive. So So that's an opportunity for the north, is the overheating of London and the south can then spill out. And in a way, some of the towns that we are in is where we
once Manchester overheats.
So and that's absolutely happened and happening. So but getting the government to to understand that is, but that's a bit easier now, because if you look at where the power sits and the people who you're having to persuade of it, well, a lot of them are northerners. So
that is true.
Yeah, it's helping.
So actually talking about the government, we've got the whole 1.5 million home agenda.
Yeah.
From your perspective, do you think we can achieve it? And what do you think the sort of practical challenges are, or how do we get close to achieving it?
I don't think you can achieve it, but I think you'd be well on the way, perhaps, if you the growth rate and the output has to be exponential. I think in the finally, if they follow the curve, the output has to be 400,000 homes or something like that in the final, in their final term. So new towns have got to be a big part of it, I think. We're delivering a new town in Cambridge, in Northstowe. So that's exciting, and I can see that the planning is that's definitely a planning hurdle. So new towns, massive planning hurdle. But I think if the government can treat it like infrastructure in the same way that they did with HS2, whereby it's not really a local planning decision, it's central government. We're going to have a new town here.
It's for the greater good.
Then I think that would shift the dial, and I think more of that would help, and that's not easy to do. To the big pieces of massive infrastructure like that are hugely expensive. So other than boatloads of cash, billions, there's no magic wand to sort it, and so it is a case of how much and how deep can Rachel Reeves dig financially to help unlock some of these things. Yeah,
I think that is the topic. The common theme is money.
Yes.
To make it happen, we need money, and I think that. I don't know how you're feeling. We feel the past year and this year, everything still feels very, very stuck. Like the whole sector should be really, 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 really busy right now if we have this 1.5 million agenda. But I think it is all those challenges of the interest rates, uncertainty. At least we've got a government that seems to have a clear agenda rather than one that was going all over the place. That's my politics coming out. But it does feel like, even with developers, that there is sort of a bit more calm and stability, which actually does mean that things are starting to move, so you can actually sort of invest. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think everyone is accepting that. Look, we're going to need these homes, and it helps. It gives political cover to all of the other political leaders across the UK, which is
so let's make this happen.
Like, look, everyone else is doing it, and the government are saying it, and that's what they want. In a way, they do want that political coverage to go, I'm sorry, central government have said that we're going to have to put 50,000 houses here. Don't blame me. Blame them. And so that's they kind of want it really, because they know that they need the homes. They know that they're going to have to deliver that to deal with the housing crisis in their particular city or town. So if central government can go, no, we'll take the flak for it, and we'll, then that makes a big difference.
And that's what they got voted in for. It was one of their sort of key things. So we've already said that you are quite politically engaged, not afraid to sort of speak up. Do you think more developers should have an active role in sort of shaping policy and being a bit more outspoken? Do you think?
Yeah, because I think otherwise it's silence is acceptance, and I think developers are scared because of the reputation of developers, if you like. So developers often won't speak up. But I think it would help if we all start to speak up a little bit. So, for example, on affordable housing, the entire onus is set on the developer to deliver affordable housing. It's not worked from successive governments. That strategy hasn't worked, and it's an easy one for government to point at the development industry and say, well, they won't deliver the affordable housing we're asking for. There's no other sector that has to deliver an affordable version of their product, just property, just housing, which I think is weird. It tells you something really, that no other sector accepts that kind of like approach. It doesn't work, but we're still stuck on it in property and real estate. And so I think if we were able to kind of collaboratively go back and as a development industry and say to government, we need some clarity here. If it's a debate point around what is affordable, what percentage is affordable, then guess what? Developers are always going to try and assume that it's going to be zero. Because if I'm trying to buy a site or a piece of land or a building, and that developer isn't, and you know that they're assuming zero affordable, then you could either assume 10% and never buy anything, or you assume zero as well because you have to, because as much as I want to do 10%
so it's kind
affordable,
of not a fair fight.
you've got to have, so there has to be a national policy, and it has to be non-negotiable, it has to be fixed, and they've got to fund it.
And then the sort of land prices will sort of will balance out. So would you say it's like one sort of key thing that government could do?
That would be massive, I think, for affordable housing
to change.
It is fix it. It could be postcode based, and there's precedent for that happening with other financial instruments around postcodes. If postcode based, it could be a set percentage so that everybody knows what it has to be. They could taper it in over time, so it doesn't have to turn on tomorrow. They could bring it in slowly over 3 years, say, so you've got forward guidance on it, and then if the affordable housing is needing funding, they've got to fund it.
That sounds like a really good idea. So maybe I'm sort of starting to wrap up. Looking ahead, are you optimistic? And what do you hope to see in the next 5 years? Maybe like in your work and in the cities that you work in.
Well, I think
quite a big question, but
in my nature, I am optimistic. I think I have to be. I've got to believe that tomorrow's going to be a better day than today, and so and that's proven to be the case for us as a business so far. I've got great faith in our towns and cities and the people in them to help affect change and make places better, and for them to want it to be better, and to want to improve places, because you do need the people to really do we can do some of back to my point about the support of a place. We can do the infrastructure bit, but it does need the people to buy into it and to do the support bit thereafter. And so, but I'm always reassured. I've got big faith in humanity's ability to do that and to change places, and so really optimistic for that. I think. We're coming off a low base almost as a nation, and so I think there's a big growth to be had, and big improvement to be had, almost like especially in much of the Midlands and the North and beyond is almost post-industrial, and now we're kind of like getting our groove on about how we
and take pride in our places.
That. I think so optimistic and all that stuff. Our projects are bigger. The average GDV is about 75 to 100 million, and so that means now that we that brings new challenges, but we have 8 live construction sites at the moment, but new ones starting and previous ones finishing all the time. So that's really rewarding, that constant kind of churn of dereliction to prosperity is great.
It goes back to your finding the pieces of art and finding the old back cars, and you sort of polish them up, make them new, and take pride in it again.
So it's just the same thing.
Yeah,
it's just the same thing. It's just a bigger, slightly more complex series of challenges.
More money, more complexity, more people involved.
Bigger numbers, and involving the public is always a challenge. But what a rewarding process it is. What a great sector to be in, and it's what a legacy to to be able to help, leave behind and create in a place. So I feel like those places that we've worked, I always feel like I'm going home when I go back to them, and that's a lovely feeling.
That's amazing. And you've actually made me feel very optimistic.
Good.
Because actually I wasn't feeling that optimistic this morning, but yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's a really good way to end. Let's end on a positive note. Thank you.